Hey everybody, Brian Zane here with another classic pay-per-view review as nominated on by my Patreon backers. This week I'm talking about WCW's Great American Bash 1991 from July 14th in Baltimore, Maryland. This was nominated by Brian Henniger. Thank you so much, Brian, for that suggestion, and I kind of hate you just a little bit after having watched this thing. My life is worse off now having watched this show. What can we say? It's the first official WCW Great American Bash, because previously it was part of Jim Crockett Promotions and the NWA. Now it's under Turner, the first WCW Bash. Jim Herd is in charge of the company at this point. Ric Flair, the champion, is out as WCW champion. He was fired 2 weeks before this event. It was originally scheduled to be a cage match between he and Lex Luger for the title, but he was fired from the company after a dispute with Jim Herd. Famously, Flair kept the belt with him because he legally owned it after putting the deposit down on it. So he had the physical belt and he took it with him to WWF TV some months later. That's a whole other story. In his place, in Flair's place, now you have Barry Windham. That shook the card up a little bit, as we'll get to as this review goes on. But that's the biggest story about this. The Ric Flair, the champion, someone who is synonymous with WCW, is out from one of the biggest shows the company has all year. Let's see how it plays out. The show officially begins with this little video package of someone from like the first person perspective walking toward the arena. He goes to the ticket counter and says, 2 tickets please, and the guy just hands him the tickets. No money is exchanged in this transaction. Like, God, how badly they paper in this show. Also, who's with this guy in the first person perspective? Because it seems he's by himself. Who's the second ticket for? Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone are calling the action on this night. Our first match is a scaffold match as the TV champion, Stunning Steve Austin, and his partner Terrance Taylor, the computerized man of the 1990s, takes on the former TV champion, the man Austin beat for the belt 1 month previous, beautiful Bobby Eaton, and yo baby, yo, it's only PN News. Now, anyone who's seen my worst gimmick matches countdown knows I detest the scaffold match. I think it's one of the dumbest stipulation matches of all time because it severely handcuffs what the wrestlers can do once they're up there. And of course, there's the ever-present risk of grievous bodily harm from falling off the damn thing. But luckily, Dusty Rhodes, he was the booker at this time, he came up with an ingenious way to get around that whole risk of bodily harm by implementing this capture the flag stipulation. I guess no one wanted to fall off the scaffold, so they said, well, screw it, we'll just do, capture the flag thing. So on each end of the scaffold now, there's a big orange flag, and, the team that grabs their flag and walks it back to their side of the scaffold wins the match. Easier said than done, as you'll find out here. The top-down angle they have, it's a really cool angle in theory, but, when they show it, all you see are just these empty seats along the entrance ramp. It looks really bad. Now, granted, it fills up over time. By the end of the night, those seats are all full, and it looks more impressive, but just the opening match, this ridiculous match that we have on hand here, and all these empty seats, it makes it look totally Bush League. With guys like Steve Austin and Terry Taylor and Bobby Eaton, you have 3 of some of the best all-around workers the business has ever seen, and they're completely stifled. They look like total jabronis up there on the scaffold, just trying to exchange punches and trying to just keep their balance the whole time. Everything's in slow motion. PN News, considering what he's wearing and how high up he is from the ground, looks like a fucking hot air balloon. He just looks like he does not belong there at all. I don't know who was ribbing PN News, putting him in the scaffold match, because you see for a lot of the match, he's like up against his side of the scaffold, laying perfectly still. He does not want to do anything to risk falling off the damn thing. It looks pretty ridiculous. The ending of the match is so screwed up. So Eaton grabs Austin and Taylor's flag after fighting a long time to get it out. Then he walks across the scaffold. He doesn't even make it halfway across the scaffold and the bell rings. So there's this moment where, okay, is the match over? Then Lady Blossom, who's Austin's manager at this time, tosses up some hairspray, and then, Austin sprays Eaton and PN News with the hairspray, and then they all kind of like climb down and keep fighting. And only at that point do they finally announce that Eaton and PN News won the damn thing. Something tells me they missed their cue and that they were supposed to do the hairspray spot before the bell officially rang. I think maybe Eaton just went into business for himself and went home early. I don't know, but it was a very awkward finish, this thing. Wow, is all I can say about this match. I mean, this match right here perfectly encapsulates why I think the scaffold match is a terrible idea. I give this match 1/2 star. I know Dave Meltzer gave it a negative rating when he reviewed it the first time. I don't think I'm going to do negative star ratings. I don't think I'm going to go full 0 stars either, but this is about as low as I can go. 1/2 star. It was a match. Wrestlers were involved, and I'm pretty sure a bell rang at the end. Up next, the Diamond Stud, better known today as Scott Hall, with his manager Diamond Dallas Page taking on the Z-Man. No, I'm not a time-traveling wrestler. It's just Tom Zenk with his nickname, the Z-Man. And just full disclosure, that nickname was given to me when I started wrestling. I did not take that name. It just stuck when someone gave it to me. So there you go. Stud and Diamond Dallas Page come out to some botched, mismatching, asymmetrical pyro. I love what DDP's wearing here. I want to dress like DDP. He's got the American flag jacket and rocking a sweet, bedazzled fanny pack. This is just the best. Scott Hall's about a month into his run as the Diamond Stud here, although he had wrestled for them before in the NWA, so it's not his first time in the company here. It's kind of a Rick Rude gimmick he's got going on here. He's the very muscular ladies man kind of thing. At one point, they bring a female fan into the ring to tear off his removable workout clothes. Very big similarities there between the Diamond Stud and Rick Rude's gimmick. This match, it was a solid match between the two of them. Stud doing a lot of punches and kicks. At one point, he hits Z-Man with a big choke slam, which is kind of unique for the time. I don't think the choke slam was really widely used at that point in the early 90s, so good points to Scott Hall for doing that. Z-Man hits Stud with a missile drop kick and goes for a cover, but DDP reaches in and slaps Z-Man. Z-Man drags Page into the ring and kicks him back out, although Page can't do the proper flip over the top, so he just kind of like powders out through the middle ropes. Stud hits a belly to back suplex from behind and bridges to win the match. So yeah, it was a short and sweet match. Got Diamond Stud over in a big way, and Z-Man did a really good job making him look credible here. I'm going to give this match a 2-star rating. Up next, I am looking forward to this match, brother. Ron Simmons, fresh off of his breakup with Butch Reed and the Tag Team Doom, taking on the great and powerful Oz, aka Kevin Nash, who was accompanied to the ring by the Great Wizard, aka Kevin Sullivan in a mask. It just looks really ridiculous. And I've never actually seen Oz in action before this point. I only heard about him. I've seen pictures. Never saw him actually with the whole get-up doing his entrance. So I was really excited to see what would happen here. So for Oz's entrance, like the curtain on the stage is this big green Castle Grayskull. I think they're confusing the Oz and He-Man mythology here. So Oz comes out walking to the ring with the Great Wizard. Then he takes off his like hat and beard thing to reveal Kevin Nash with like the Brillo pad hair and like spray painted gray for some reason. This match is a big hoss fight. These two guys are just beating the piss out of each other. Simmons, of course, at this point is more of in his athletic prime here. Nash is still pretty early on in his career, so he has some room to grow before he becomes, the big superstar he would go on to be. Just a lot of just beating each other up with big, hard-hitting blows. Simmons hits Oz with 3 consecutive clotheslines. The first two of them, especially the first one, kind of look like shit, but it leads to a sequence where on the 3rd clothesline, Simmons finally knocks Oz out of the ring. So I like the build-up of that. The Great Wizard really does nothing in this match. He just kind of stands there for the bulk of it, and at one point when Simmons is down outside the ring, he just kicks him once and walks away. I'm like, is he wearing sweatpants underneath his robe? How lazy is that, Sullivan? The match ends when Simmons hits Oz with a series of tackles and shoulder blocks, harkening back to his football days. He wins the match as the Great Wizard just stands there on the apron kind of looking dumb, and then he sheepishly walks off as the match is ending. Kind of a simple match here. We would not see Oz very much longer after this. He would soon be repackaged as Vinny Vegas, and then of course, and so on for Kevin Nash's career. But yeah, Oz is just a great and powerfully bizarre character, and really one that belongs in the dustbin. I give this match 1.5 stars. Up next, the Rock and Roll Express implodes as Robert Gibson takes on Richard Morton. No, not Ricky Morton, Richard Morton. See, the previous month at Clash of Champions 15, Ricky Morton turned on his partner and joined the York Foundation, which meant he got a fancier name. That's what happened in the York Foundation. Like Terry Taylor became Terrance Taylor, Ricky Morton became Richard Morton, and so on. For those of you who don't know what the York Foundation was, it was a stable around this time that was headed up by Alexandra York, who would go on to become Marlena, Terry Runnels, what have you. And yeah, she had a big clunky laptop computer, and they said that the computer analyzed opponents and gave the wrestlers under York's charge the tools and strategies to help win their matches. An interesting note, now that Richard Morton's turned heel and he's against Robert Gibson, why is he still wearing Rock and Roll Express tights? He still has like the bandana hanging out of the side like he did. This is just like a big old school style match. This is a match I think it wasn't received very well by this crowd, but I think it would have killed in like a smaller territorial arena. That was just that kind of style in my opinion. I liked the story of this match in particular, just Morton just attacking Gibson's leg. At one point, Morton wraps Gibson's leg around the ring post, and Gibson lets out this very audible, "Oh shit!"
Many moves! And it's wrapped right around the steel.
Morton even goes so far as to tear apart Gibson's tights and starts like attacking the knee brace and starts like tearing that off and undoing that. Just brutal stuff, just attacking the limb here. Again, very old school stuff in terms of telling the story of just attacking Gibson's leg. There are some brief hope spots from Robert. There's like a DDT and a back body drop, top rope Beal, and he's selling the leg big time here. There's absolutely awesome selling by Gibson here. I love the spot here in the middle of the comeback where they're both on the ramp on the outside and they each go for a drop kick. That to me was just so cool and really plays up the fact these two know each other so well. The match ends on Alexander York's on the apron distracting the referee. This allows Morton to grab the laptop and whack it across Gibson's back shoulder area to win the match. So it's a dirty win, but it's still, I think it was a really good match, told a really good story. I'm going to give this one 3 stars. And not everybody agrees that this was a really good match. It was one of my personal favorites just because of the story they told here. And, you know, I can buy into, you know, Ricky and Robert having this feud now and starting to fight like this. Yeah, I think that worked for me. 6-man tag team elimination match is up next as Dustin Rhodes and the Young Pistols, Steve Armstrong and Tracy Smothers, take on the fabulous Freebirds, Michael Hayes, Jimmy Jam Garvin, and Bad Street, aka Brad Armstrong under a mask. The Freebirds are accompanied by their manager, Big Daddy Dink. Holy shit, so many managers on this show. We have Big Daddy Dink here, we've had Lady Blossom, we had DDP, we had the Great Wizard, we have Kevin Sullivan coming back out as himself later on. So many managers on this show. Like, people always ask me, like, should managers come back to WWE? And I'm like, sure, but they should really cap it at like 2 per show, because anything more than that and it's just overkill. Not everyone, you know, sometimes people need managers, but not like literally everyone. This is just total managerial overkill in my opinion. And it wasn't that long ago that Jim Cornette was part of WCW, but at this point he's out of the company, but he was still, you know, like he was recently a manager in WCW, and Paulie Dangerously is in this show later on, not as a manager, but as a wrestler, and I'll get to that nightmare later, but there you go. There's tons of managers in WCW. What were they doing with all these managers? Dustin's really channeling the spirit of his father in this pre-match promo, and by channeling the spirit, I mean blatantly copying him.
Young Pistols natural Dustin Rhodes. It's the greatest night of my professional career.
So the match begins. I really enjoy like this grandstanding and showboating and posing by Hayes and Garvin here. These two are definitely like carrying the load as far as the personality department for this 3-man team. Of course, you know, Bad Street, Brad Armstrong, I've said before, one of the best wrestlers of his generation, but he's never had that charisma factor to really get over as a star, which is why he was saddled with so many bland gimmicks, like he was the Candy Man and he was Arachna Man, and of course here he's Bad Street under a mask because they can't get him over by himself. I do like seeing the few times you see Steve and Brad Armstrong in the ring together. I mean, how often do you see brothers in wrestling fighting each other, being on opposite teams? I mean, it's pretty rare to see. So even though Brad is under a mask here, you know, those of us who are in the know and know who it is, it's still cool to see like he and Steve tussling occasionally in this match. These two didn't get a lot of like one-on-one time together in this match, but the fact that they're there at all is really cool in my opinion. The timing of the eliminations in this match, they're not very evenly stretched out. It's like, it's all kind of like boom, boom, then some more action, then boom, boom, and near the end. Steve is eliminated first after a double DDT by Hayes and Bad Street. Hayes then immediately backdrops Tracy Smothers over the top rope and gets disqualified. It's the Bill Watts rule. He throws him over the top rope, so Hayes is then out. More action. And by the way, the fans are very pro Freebirds here. I was almost 90% sure these guys were supposed to be the heels in this matchup, but not to be the case apparently, because they were cheered a lot when they eliminated Steve Armstrong, and then Michael Hayes, the fans booed once he got eliminated. So then you've got Tracy eliminated after another double DDT, this time by Garvin and Bad Street, and then right after that, Dustin Rhodes runs in and knocks out Garvin with a lariat, eliminates him. So it's down to Rhodes and Bad Street in the final 2. Big Daddy Dink distracts the referee, and Dustin hits Bad Street with the running bulldog, and while he's doing that, he's also simultaneously drop-kicking Big Daddy Dink out of the ring there, and Dustin wins. Dustin single-handedly eliminates 3 people on this night, but he's not done yet. I'll get to that in a little bit, but I think everyone had good looks in this match. I'm going to give this one 2 stars. Up next, the Yellow Dog takes on Johnny B. Bad in Bad's in-ring WCW pay-per-view debut. Again, more managers happening in this match. You got Theodore Long coming out with Johnny B. Bad. You got the Yellow Dog coming out with a Golden Retriever. Who gave that dog a manager's license? Anyway, Yellow Dog is famously Brian Pillman under a mask, and the whole story is he lost a loser leaves WCW match to Barry Windham earlier in the year, so he's back in the mask. It's very obvious it's him. It's kind of similar to the whole Midnight Rider angle from before that with Dusty Rhodes, or a more current comparison is Mr. America, Hulk Hogan. And the whole thing is that I believe Yellow Dog's mask is on the line in this match, and if he unmasks and it's revealed to be Brian Pillman, he will not be eligible for reinstatement. So the whole thing is like, oh, some people are going, that's clearly Brian Pillman. Oh, but you never know because he's wearing the mask. Before the match officially begins, Yellow Dog has a real sick burn on Johnny B. Bad.
Johnny don't be bad, Johnny be gay.
He also gets the fans to chant faggot at Johnny B. Bad, which is just like a my mind was blown. I couldn't believe that happened. Jim Ross kills the gimmick dead like 1 minute into the match because he calls the Yellow Dog Flying Brian when he's calling a move. Then he immediately backtracks and says, well, some people say he might resemble Flying Brian, you know. And so there's good athleticism in the ring here between both guys. You know, I'm not gonna discount either of these guys' abilities in the ring. The silly gimmicks aside, Yellow Dog hits a top rope crossbody on Johnny B. Bad. That's when Teddy Long gets in the ring and attacks Yellow Dog, tries to unmask him, and so Teddy Long is Long disqualifies Johnny B. Bad, I should say. It was a decent enough match, but it had kind of a weak finish. I give this one 2 stars. Backstage, Eric Bischoff, back when he was just a third string announcer and not the executive vice president of the company, is trying to interview Missy Hyatt in her locker room because she's got a big match coming up. Missy is in the shower and Eric gets super creepy.
I hear noise and... Oh, I love this job. Somebody's got to do it, right? I came back...
Up next, a Lumberjack match as Black Blood takes on Big Josh. It's a Portland wrestling reunion here because Black Blood is Billy Jack Haynes under a mask, and Big Josh is portrayed by Matt Bourne, the son of Tony Bourne. Of course, Matt would go on to become the first version of Doink the Clown in WWF. So these guys have a lot of history together in the Portland territory, the Don Owen Pacific Northwest territory. So really cool to see these two guys here on the big stage of WCW, albeit with different gimmicks. Black Blood is billed from a little town in France, which is just the best hometown ever. This is like the first match in the entire card where there isn't a manager here. There's enough people outside the ring to begin with because the Lumberjacks, but there's no manager. Black Blood, his name key says he's coming out with Kevin Sullivan, but he's not actually there. So there you go, Chiron botch there. So yeah, no managers for once here. The Lumberjacks include Dick Murdoch, Dick Slater, the Junkyard Dog, who I forgot actually wrestled for WCW for a while after WWF, Dustin Rhodes, PN News, Bobby Eaton, Richard Morton. The Lumberjacks can't stop fighting each other. That's like the big story in this match. Like whatever's going on in the ring with Black Blood and Big Josh, kind of irrelevant because the Lumberjacks keep fighting each other. The match ends when Black Blood goes to hit Big Josh with his axe, which, holy shit, if he hit that, that'd be pretty devastating. Then Dustin Rhodes hits Black Blood with Josh's axe handle to distract him. Then Josh wins with a small package. I'm going to give this match like 1.5 stars. The Lumberjacks just took everything away from what was going on in the ring, and they weren't even that good at Lumberjacks to begin with. The thing is, and I mentioned this before with Dustin Rhodes, how he single-handedly took out 3 guys in that 6-man tag team match. Then he took out a 4th guy, essentially, in this match. So, it's one of those things you scream nepotism when you think about it, because of course his father was the booker. I didn't really think about it at the time watching it. Then I looked back like, oh yeah, like Dustin Rhodes is booked really strong in this show. It's the Battle of the Giants as the one-man gang, no longer Akeem, now flanked by Kevin Sullivan at ringside, taking on El Gigante, the man who would become Giant Gonzalez in the WWF. El Gigante, for some reason, comes out with 4 midgets, one of them on his shoulder. It makes El Gigante look even bigger than he already is, having these midgets running around. Actually, the midgets, they run around one-man gang and make him look silly, like he's trying to chase them. This gaggle of midgets making one-man gang look silly. Very interesting prelude to this match. This was just an ugly match. Bowling shoe ugly, as Jim Ross might have said. One-man gang's using a wrench that Sullivan keeps handing him, and El Gigante is not selling anything. He just falls down and kind of flops. He's like, his selling is just so lackadaisical. The match ends when Sullivan hands one-man gang this envelope of mysterious white powder. One-man gang's looking like he's done this kind of thing before. He turns around and the powder gets kicked into his face by El Gigante, so he's blinded. El Gigante hits him from the back with a clothesline to win the match. And I will say, all the credit goes in the world of one-man gang for just getting tossed around throughout the match and making El Gigante look like $1 million. At one point, he was tossed off the top rope by El Gigante, which was really cool for a man his size to do. That being said, I give this match 1/2 star because, except for the impressiveness of one-man gang coming off the top rope and bumping, not much to say about this match. It was ugly. It was bad. It takes some work for Steve Austin and El Gigante to be in the 1/2 star club on a show like this, but there you go. Up next, a Russian chain match as Sting takes on Nikita Koloff, who is not from Russia anymore, but from Lithuania, okay? We get our first real hype package of the night here, showing the rivalry between these two. It involves, like, Nikita Koloff going after some children, some little stingers, and the mom gets in between them. It's just very hammy stuff. It's a brawl for this match. Both guys just beating the hell out of each other with the chain. Not a lot of effort from either guy when it comes to like trying to touch the corner pads, which is the object of the match here. When I saw the end of this match, I got a big case of deja vu because, I just reviewed, Great American Bash 2004, that Texas Bull Rope match, Eddie Guerrero and JBL, and what do they do here? They have a very similar finish here in 1991. Apparently the writers in 2004 drew their inspiration from one of the worst pay-per-views of all time. So there you go. You've got Sting and Koloff each touching the corner post, and the referee's counting them one apiece. Gets tied at 3-3, and Sting tries to jump over Koloff to touch it, but Koloff turns around and touches that last corner just the last second before Sting can. So in a manner very similar to what happened between JBL and Eddie Guerrero, Koloff wins the match, but Sting does beat up Koloff some more with the chain, a couple of crotch shots right in the gonads with the chain. So Sting gets the last laugh there. It was a decent brawl. It was a good finish. I think if I had watched that one before I saw the 2004 one, it would have made a larger impact on me. That being said, I'm going to give this match 2.5 stars. It is one of the better matches of the show, which is not saying much. In what is technically the main event of the evening, but not the final match of the night, we have a cage match for the vacant WCW Championship as Lex Luger, who is the current U.S. champion here, taking on Barry Windham, or Windham as his name graphic suggests. Of course, like I mentioned at the top of this review, Ric Flair was the champion, scheduled to defend against Luger in the cage, but 2 weeks beforehand, he got fired from the company, took the belt with him, so this was kind of their stopgap. They had to declare a new champion here. They kept billing this as the dawn of a new era, even though you could argue that both these guys are kind of past the point of where they really peaked and should have won the championship. You could argue about that. First off, let's take a look at the cage. They have the cage up above the ring and they shoot pyro off, but Jesus Christ, look at that crooked ass cage. Like, they can't even get the cage to lower correctly, so that causes a huge delay. And you can see Shivani and JR just trying to eat up time, trying to fill this whole snafu here. And then they take the time to show you the interim belt that they're using in this match. Now, they commissioned a new championship belt, the one that you would see guys like Vader and Ron Simmons wear, but that belt obviously didn't come in time. So what you have here instead is this makeshift, like Dusty Rhodes' Florida championship belt, and they slapped some metal plates on it to cover the word Florida, and this is their makeshift championship belt, and they show it more than once. It's not really worth showing. It's a terrible, ugly looking belt. This is where the "We Want Flair" chants are at their loudest and most rabid here. That's the one defining thing about this show, is the "We Want Flair" chants. Fans knowing Flair isn't there, or they want him to come back, they think it's part of an angle, so that all night apparently they chant "We Want Flair." Now, I watched this show, and maybe it's the version of the show I have, because I didn't watch on the network. I have like a VHS ripped onto DVD copy of it, so it's like kind of that old grainy look. So maybe it was my copy of it and I couldn't hear it, but I didn't hear the "We Want Flair" chants until the main event, and there were a lot of them there, but it wasn't like they're the whole show like people say. Maybe I'm wrong. Again, maybe it's just the version I had, I couldn't hear it. I don't know, but yeah, the "We Want Flair" chants were definitely happening here as the cage is being lowered, as before and after the bell rings. There's a Nature Boy chant, and of course the announcers, they don't acknowledge it at all, which is, I don't know if it would be smart of them to acknowledge it, because yeah, it's like, well, you want Flair, but he's not coming here, so sorry. Probably good of them to fabe it, but at the same time, you're kind of surprised they didn't try and like mute the crowd here. As far as the match itself, it was a good enough match, but my one gripe with this thing was like, it's a cage match, but this is a match that didn't need to happen in a cage. Just aside from the fact that there's no real gripe between Luger and Windham here, there's no reason to justify needing a cage, because at that time cage matches were still kind of feud enders. Nothing they did in this match necessitated a cage at all. There were really no cage spots. There was one point in which Windham counters out of the torture rack by pushing off of the cage wall with his foot, but I think he could have managed to do that some other way without, using the cage. Really, the match didn't need a cage at all. It was just really bizarre. But the match itself was okay. At one point in the match, JR says that Windham needs to maintain his verticality, which I thought he was making that word up. Then I looked it up and oh, okay, verticality is actually a word. So it points to you, JR. This is why my vocabulary was so good in middle school, because I started listening to Jim Ross call matches in WWF. As the match is ending, Harley Race and Curtis Hughes make their way to the ring. Curtis is distracting Barry Windham here, and then Harley Race on the other side of the ring tells Luger now is the time. So Luger knees Windham in the back, hits him with a pile driver to win the match, and the crowd really does go nuts for this. I think by the end of the match, the "We Want Flair," the Nature Boy chants really went away. They were more drawn into this match here. They stopped caring about Ric Flair, started caring more about Luger and Windham. They popped big for Luger winning the championship here, even though he technically turned heel here. I think it was kind of a double turn, because Windham was a heel. I think at this point in time, Luger's the face. After the match, you would see Luger align himself with Race and Hughes. It was a very weird, passive kind of heel turn because, there was no blatant interference because there was the cage. Like I said, good enough match, but the fact they didn't utilize the cage at all was weird, kind of unnecessary to include it, but they advertised a cage match, they had to give you a cage match. So I'm going to give this match 3 stars. So this is our final match of the evening. It's a mixed tag team match in the steel cage as Missy Hyatt and Rick Steiner take on Paulie Dangerously and Arn Anderson. Universe mode, you done fucked up this time. Why was this match the last on the card? Why would it be technically called the main event? Why was it in the cage? We just don't know. This match originally was booked to be the Steiner brothers, Rick and Scott, and Missy Hyatt taking on Arn, Barry Windham, and Paulie Dangerously. But obviously things changed because Barry got moved to the world title match, and then Scott Steiner also tore his bicep, so he was out. So even if this match was as advertised, 3-on-3, I still wanted to put it as last match of the show. If you're going to be doing Dawning of the New Era, you should have the world title match as the closer. But why they kept it the way it was, I have no idea. And here's the even more amazing thing. It was kind of a bait and switch because they advertised Missy Hyatt would be in this match against Paul Dangerously, but it turns out the Maryland Athletic Commission didn't allow men and women to wrestle each other in the ring. And apparently, I listened to this on the Tony Schiavone podcast, they didn't know about this rule until like really soon before the show. They had to scramble to figure out what to do. So because they had advertised this mixed tag team match, so what are they going to get out of it? What they had is Dick Murdoch and Dick Slater just come in and apprehend Missy Hyatt and just carry her out of the ring. So it becomes a 2-on-1 situation. And by the way, worth noting here, Paul Heyman is 26 at the time of this show. He's 26 years old. That is mind-boggling to me, to look at him there and see how well he is aged after he finished aging horribly. Like he reached this point where he just like looked like that, and then like he looked great in comparison for the next 26 years, except for the weight gain and the loss of hair. Like he's looking really good after what I saw him in 1991. Anyway, this match is like 2 minutes long. It's barely worth talking about. Heyman hits Steiner with the cell phone. Arn goes for another shot with the phone. He's jumping off the middle rope, but he's caught in midair with a Steiner line by Rick. Then Rick catches Paul Heyman, hits him with a Steiner line, and wins the match. This is another 1.5 star beaut here for, this is how we're going to wrap up Great American Bash 1991 with, Rick Steiner standing tall over Paul E. Dangerously in a cage. What? So my final grade for Great American Bash 1991 is a D-. Holy shit, this show is deplorable. For those of you out there who said that Battleground a couple of weeks ago is one of the worst pay-per-views you ever seen, one of the worst pay-per-views of all time, go back and watch Great American Bash 1991. You will kiss the ground that Battleground walks on, my friends, because that show is amazing compared to Great American Bash 1991. I mean, take your pick. You got a 400-pound fat ass up on top of a scaffold trying not to kill himself. You got Great Khali. I still think Great Khali wins in this matchup, folks. There were a couple of solid matches in this show. I thought the Morton Gibson match was great. I thought the 6-man tag had its moments, and I think the world title match was a fine match, even though the cage was irrelevant. But beyond that, things were forgettable at best or horrid at worst. It was just so bad. How badly did you have to screw up as a booker to make Steve Austin look like dog shit, or make Bobby Eaton or Terry Taylor look like total crap in a match with a scaffold match? Are you kidding me? This was just one of the worst things I've seen. Even if Ric Flair was a part of this show, it wouldn't have saved the event. It would have sullied Ric Flair's career had he been involved in this show, had he not bailed by then. Even with or without Flair, this is a dark time for WCW. I don't want to discount Flair's ability to draw in WCW. He was synonymous with the company, so him leaving was a huge blow to WCW at this time. So Flair being there would have helped, I think. It would have helped the karma and the goodwill of the company, but him leaving was probably the best thing that happened for his career for that time, to go over to WWF and sow his oats there, so to speak, and become even more of a legend there. With Jim Herd running things into the ground and Dusty Rhodes, the booker, getting mixed reviews at best, hard to find many silver linings with 1991 in general, but in particular, the Great American Bash. Screw you, Brian Henniger, for making me review this show. So that was my review of Great American Bash, folks. If you want to see me review more classic pay-per-views, both good and bad, and you want to have a say in which shows I review, go to patreon.com/wrestlingwithwregret, become a $10 backer or above, and you will have the right to pick future shows for me to review. Next time on the classic pay-per-view review gimmick, it's SummerSlam season, as we all know, so I will be reviewing a classic SummerSlam show. However, I've done enough bad shows lately. I really want to branch out and do some good shows for a change, so I'm going to be reviewing a good SummerSlam. One of the top requested pay-per-views I've had since doing this segment is going to be SummerSlam 2002. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you like it, comment below, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, and buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.